Hey everyone, and welcome to a pretty little podcast. We're here, another episode. I'm Allie Violet Vixen Commissaro, and I'm here with the beautiful Jessie.
Hello.
Loving the hair and the locks.
I was gonna be like, you look especially beautiful tonight, dude.
Oh, thank
I put some
you.
stuff on my walls just because I was like, I can't come on another week without it. So I got a couple things.
Yeah, I redid the extensions, so
Oh man, it looks so
they're
good.
very vibrant and long. Like I let it go for a little bit with the lighter tips, but
I like it. I love it. I also am always impressed at how consistently the same like fuchsia purple, like it's like you have the most signature Alley Violet Vixen. Like you are the Violet Vixen, and I don't know what the formula is, but I'm like, man, she's got it down. But I'm super excited this week.
it's a lot of different elements. But tonight we have Jeff Brennan, a renowned illustrator known for bringing storytelling to life through his art. Using his wild imagination to create playful, vibrant characters we all know and love. Join us as Jeff shares his creative journey and insights into illustration. Please welcome Jeff Wildstar Brennan.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Hey!
I love that you're wearing the Courage shirt.
I that was a last minute change. I had to make sure to put that on.
Oh.
So let's just jump right in because everybody wants to know the backstory of how you got into it.
On how I got the job on Courage?
No, how did you get started with comic? Do you go as a comic artist or illustrator or
storyboard artist?
Like,
pretty much. It's funny. Like when I got started, I really wanted to be a comic book artist. Like I was a really big fan of. I don't know if you know John Byrne's X-Men. I was a really big fan of that stuff. Really inspired me to be a comic book artist. So my early work. Well, I guess we'll go back even further than that. I had a. I don't know if you ever seen those Treasury editions, those big oversized comic books. They had them when I was a kid, and my mom bought me the Spider-Man one, and I was blown away by it. I was like, oh my God. And I started looking at the names in there, and I'm like, they're paying people to do this. I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, I want to do this. So early on, I started getting more and more comic book work. I mean, started getting some comic book work, but then as I went along, I ended up getting more animation work than comic work. I've probably done about 15, 20 comic books, I would say. But as far as animation, I've probably done a lot more animation work, a lot more different shows, a lot more episodes and stuff. And it just kind of worked out that way. But I think it's actually worked out well because I think people kind of respond more to cartoons that are on TV than they do like comic books in some ways. So it all worked out, and there's shows that people remember too, which I'm also lucky that I got a couple of those too.
Right?
now, would you say going back that Spider-Man was your favorite?
That was what started it for me, but the John Byrne X-Men was really, yeah, like those were the two, and Superman and stuff like that too, like that kind of stuff. And it's great because I actually got to work on all three. My first job was on an issue of Superman doing backgrounds. It was uncredited, but it was like my first job, and then that led to me getting background work in animation, and I worked on a X-Men toy commercial and a Spider-Man pasta commercial. So luckily I got to work on all three of them, all three of my favorites. So I was always glad about that.
That's amazing.
Now you've done so much in between. What inspires your illustrations now?
It's hard to say. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I have a lot of things that influence my work, but like nowadays I don't. It's funny because I don't really read that much comic books anymore or watch as much cartoons as I used to. But I guess some of the current stuff I still like is like the Miyazaki movies, like the Studio Ghibli movies. I like some of the Pixar stuff, because I do the Girl L.E.E.T.A comic book, which is all 3D. So yeah, a little bit of everything, I guess.
Now, does your daughter, does she draw?
She does too, yeah. She's, she's 11, so she's learning. But sometimes she says she wants to be an artist. Sometimes she says she wants to be a botanist.
Oh, I
Like
guess I have
she
an
changes.
11-year-old too.
Yeah, yeah.
But so, can you explain to us kind of what the creative process is behind like making like a comic book?
Well, comic books, like I'm still writing the Cyber Girl L.E.E.T.A comic book, and that one's a little different because I'm the writer, I'm the artist, I'm the editor, I'm everything on that. So usually on that one, I start out with really loose, like rough sketches, and then that's when I'm kind of doing the writing as well. Like as I'm, plotting it out, like I kind of like almost stick figures. Like nobody but me could probably look at it and know what's going on. But then I make little dialogue notes, not even complete dialogue notes, like just a rough idea where the dialogue's going to be, and then I usually go from that into making the 3D models. Like for example, if I'm doing a new location, I have to build all the backgrounds for that, or if I'm adding like a new character, I have to build that. But if it's something that's like existing characters, I can use the same ones. Or like when I change costumes, like in recent issues, I changed some of the characters' costumes, so I have to make a new version of that character with a new costume and stuff. So yeah,
Now, which one does better, the clean one or the adult one?
Oh, I only have a well, I did have okay. I did have an adult like pinup book actually, and that's funny because that was on one of my Kickstarters, and that one, like the clean one, I sold for I think like $8, and the adult one was $50, and I sold a lot more of the adult ones, and it was almost the same thing. It was the same book pretty much, and they were robots, which didn't even make any sense, but that they would be, naked and stuff. But that's what people wanted though, and I'm like, well, if it gets my book funded, why not?
Now, you've got to work with a lot of different people in the industry and different artists. Are there any artists that you would say have taught you something or have influenced you in any way?
Well, like I mentioned, John Byrne was a big one from when I was a kid. But I also working with John Dilworth was actually pretty good too because I was pretty young at that time, starting on that. And when I first started working on the Courage pilot episode, it wasn't even meant to be a pilot; it was a short film, and he taught me a lot about animation on that one actually. So that I learned a lot from that. Yeah, I worked with some pretty big name people like Matt Groening. I didn't really he just kind of hired me. I didn't really work with him so much. I would be surprised if he'd even remember the time that it was with him. And Mike Judge too was another one that he was kind of in the room and kind of looking over everybody's stuff, but I didn't really interact with him that much either. But
that's incredible. I would say when you're doing the storyboards and stuff like that, are they typed up? Or is it like written and then you kind of imagine what it is?
It's written up on a script actually. It's like typed on a just
script almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. It looks exactly like a movie script. Some of the storyboards I've done are like from scratch like that, but then there's other ones where they have like a rough storyboard and they'll come back from the director and they'll say, let's make this scene longer. So they give me like a finished storyboard and then I like add a scene in the middle of it, and then there's things like that, or like, oh, these characters don't look on model, can you fix them up? So I've done both. I've done them from scratch, but I've also done the revisions as well.
That's interesting. Is it vary between who you're working for, like say like the Courage staff or like my Judge or like
right,
kind of?
Yeah, depends. Like on Courage, I was pretty lucky because it was a small studio. It was in New York at the time too, and I got to do animation. I got to do character design. I got to do background design, prop design, storyboards. My credit, I think, just says designer, but I got to do a lot more than I do on most shows because it was like a smaller studio.
I see.
Yeah.
This was like super interesting. I see in like I went and seen like the making of Miyazaki films and stuff like that. And there's the background person. There's it's like interesting. There'll be an entire staff for just one job.
Right.
It's like incredible. All the moving parts that you don't realize that go behind animation.
Oh yeah, there's so many cells too, like, and the different pictures that you have to. I mean, especially like. I remember going to Disney and like you walk through the gallery like with the art and they have like the play-by-play of like how they put some of it together.
Oh
It's
yeah.
crazy. Like some of them, there's like hundreds.
Well, it's funny. We went to my family went to like a Pixar exhibit that they had at Liberty Science Center recently, and they show how they do the 3D models and stuff like that. And my daughter was like, "Oh, this is so cool." I'm like, I've got the same software at home. You could have, I could have showed you this anytime. She goes, "Oh, but this is cool. I like this." It's different when you see the Pixar name on it, I guess.
Yeah, that's so funny. I remember like Kristen Bell was saying that she said that she showed her kids Frozen for the first time, and they were super like into it until she was like, "That's mommy." Like
that's funny.
Yeah. Then they don't really care. They don't care.
My daughter's like that. When I wear my Courage shirt, if we're like just going into a Walmart, or inevitably people go, "Oh, I love that show. Thanks so much." And my daughter always goes, "Don't tell them." She's like, "Don't tell them," because then they're going to want to talk to you and for 20 minutes, and I get bored.
That's so funny.
Now, does she enjoy it when you go to like Comic Cons and stuff like that?
Yeah, we're going to the office. There's like a office convention in about 2 weeks or so in Florida, and she loves The Office, so she wants to come to that one with me. And she's going to cosplay as one of the characters and everything. And plus, we're making a trip out of it. We're going to go to Disney. We're going to go to Universal and SeaWorld while we're there. So a little bit of a working vacation. After the show's over, we're going to do all that stuff. So in that case, I think she liked it. She likes it overall. She thinks it's pretty cool. Usually, just when strangers start talking to me for a long time, she gets bored.
It's a cool space to be navigating because it overlaps, especially with the cons. It's overlapping with the voice actors and
right.
all the different people who work on these various things. So you get to like I loved going to anime conventions and stuff like that. So you meet people who draw the stuff, you meet the cosplayers, you meet just cool people going there, and it's just a lot of community.
Yeah, I meet a lot of Courage cosplayers. The last show I did, you usually see like a Eustace and Muriel. Those are the two that you usually see, but they also had, I don't know if you remember the evil banana. They had a guy dressed as the evil banana.
I remember Courage dressed up as the banana, and like, yep.
And it's funny because on my I should mention, anybody that wants to follow me on Instagram, it's Jeff Wildstar. You mentioned that at the beginning. That's my Instagram handle. But my profile picture has got me holding the Ooga Booga mask that what a fan made, kind of like a Captain America shield. That's kind of funny.
I think that my favorite character, man, there's so many good characters. Also, I think one of the number one things that my friends talk about with Courage is the music, the soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Songs was like for animation at the time, especially on like Cartoon Network. We didn't have like now the soundtracks, everything's like whatever, like incredible. But I think Courage had an amazing soundtrack. Everybody loved the soundtrack with that.
Yeah.
Everyone
that I wasn't involved with.
Courageous, I'm telling you, like I got so many messages I put up on my story that you were coming on, and I mean, like, people are like, "Wow, like what? How?" I'm like, just
should I take this opportunity to say, if they want to get one of these, they can contact me. I do the Funko Pops with and as you were just telling me before we went on that they're going for some pretty good money, even just the signature with the signature on it, which surprised me.
Now, do you try to do them all a little different, or?
Yeah, well, I do repeat some of the same ones. Like I do, like I've got the Freaky Fred one, with Courage on the side, and then sometimes I'll do them like with just Muriel, but like. I do these like again and again, because so many people request certain ones. I try to keep them as consistent as I can, but sometimes they're not exactly the same. But because I know, like, say for example, if I'm in Washington, the same people that see it in Boston, they're not gonna, you know what I mean? So if I only do like one version of it, only the people in Boston are gonna get it, and
What's the weirdest thing that you've had to paint Courage doing?
Well, one person wanted a Courage. His wife was pregnant, so he wanted Courage to be pregnant with like a foot kicking his stomach out of his stomach. And I'm like, well, you realize Courage is a boy, right? He's like, yeah, I want to give this to my wife. So I'm like, it's a little weird, but okay.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, they should have done Courage like dressed like a baby or something.
Yeah. That would have been great.
Yeah, something like that.
I get a lot of fan stuff. I put this stuff on my table too to get ready for this, but I get like this actually I bought on eBay, but these are pretty cool though.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like 3D printed, and the
So cool.
and he's one of the ones I worked on, and then this guy, everybody knows him
That's
too,
my
right?
favorite. Return the slab.
You know who did the voice of him is John Dilworth did the voice of him actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, he did the voice himself for that character, which is kind of a little known fact.
That's really cool to know. I love knowing the behind the scenes stuff. He's probably one of my favorites because I do a lot of antiquing.
Okay.
People are always like, "Are you worried that's gonna be haunted?" I'm always like, "Return the slab."
That's funny.
Snacks and stuff, and everybody has a favorite Courage quote. That's definitely one of mine.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot actually. People, that's one of their favorites. People also tell me all the time. They say like, because I worked on a lot of shows. They know like Dragon Tales, Ghostbusters, Jumanji, and stuff. And they always go like, "Oh, you made my childhood." And I always say, "Well, you made my early retirement, so we're even."
Yeah, Dragon Tales is one of my favorites. Dragon Tales, Dragonland.
Today, actually, I've been because I'm doing a show in Boston again next weekend, and I've just been doing the pops, getting the pops ready, and I did about 30 sketches to get ready, just to have them like ready, and because like I mentioned the Office convention tomorrow, I'm going to be doing Funko Pops with the Office characters on it. Like I'm constantly, even though I consider it like I don't really work, like I do work a lot to prepare for the shows,
And you're constantly traveling and like going, even though they're cool events, I'm sure it gets tiring.
Yes and no. I mean, because I do about 30 a year. It's 30 to 36. So I get about 14 weeks vacation.
36 a year.
You know what I mean? I mean, most people work 52 weeks a year. So I figure I'm getting more vacation. And it's only really like 2 to 3 days a week that I'm away, and some of the ones that I do are close to home. The ones where I
how
travel.
many pops do you take now?
Usually about 120. And in Boston, it's funny because I just went to Boston. I'm going back to Boston again. But the last Boston show I did, I sold, I think like 80 of them. So I came back home and I had a lot of like restocking to do to get ready for the next Boston show. And then the next one after that is going to be the Office one. So I don't know, because the Office, like I'm not really known for the Office. I didn't do any work on that show, but they invited me to their shows because the guy who runs it's a Courage fan, and they like having me there. And it's a really fun show. I really have a lot of fun doing it. But I only have about 20 Office Funko Pops to bring with me because, first of all, I don't know if they're going to sell out or not, but I bring all the Courage ones with me too, though. You know what I mean? I figure there's a lot of the actors are going to be there, so I get the actors that are going to be there, and then, but I bring the Courage ones as well because there's a lot of Courage fans there too.
The prices, like I mean, and there's so many different, like I never see the same design on the side. That's why I was wondering, like,
okay,
the same? Are they all different? But
I think I probably, well, I never really thought about that. Like I do about 100 each. Well, see, I also bring a lot of Simpsons ones because I worked on the Simpsons comic as well. So it's not 100 Courage Pops. I bring about 50 Courage Pops, and then about 50 Simpsons, and about 30 or 40 miscellaneous. But yeah, it's out of the Courage ones I do, out of the 50, there's probably 2 of each. So I'd say there's at least 25 to 30 different drawings that I do on the side, because not everybody wants the Muriel. Some want Courage in the banana suit, or Courage in the eggplant suit, or that kind of thing. So
the eggplant.
Still enjoy drawing Courage?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I do. It's funny because when I was on the show, I mean, well, when I did the pilot, I drew a lot of Courage, but then when I was actually on the show, I didn't really draw Courage that much. I was mostly, like I did props, I did villains and that kind of stuff, but I didn't really, well, I did some storyboards too, but I didn't really draw them a lot when I was on the show. I'd probably drawn them more now than when I was on the show, actually, if you don't count the pilot episode, because that's animation. So I'm doing a lot of drawings when I did that, but he looked a little different in the pilot too.
He's just adorable.
Just like, again, I'm just like so lucky that people respond to it. I'm really glad.
It's definitely an iconic cartoon. I feel like it's like a lot of people's first taste at like horror.
That's
yeah.
I hear that a lot too, actually.
Yeah, and he's pink like Gloomy Bear. It's kind of got that vibe, like.
Yeah, I can
Well,
definitely
that's
do that.
funny too, because when I started working on it, he wasn't pink yet. And I remember the first time when I saw the color design, because it was just black and white. We were just, we were right from the ground floor. We were just like designing everything, and it was all black and white. So then they had the color team come in and do the color. And I remember thinking when I saw that he was pink, I was like, he looks like a pig now. He doesn't look like a dog to me anymore. But it's, now it's so iconic that you can't imagine him being. And I thought he was going to be like Scooby-Doo,
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I never I always just thought about him being pink. That's interesting that there was a color team to come in and pick
Yeah.
colors for everything.
Yeah, I was there before that. When I was there, it was just everything was black and white.
Huh.
What's the weirdest fan reaction that
Oh,
you've had?
there's a lot of those. I don't know. Oh boy.
Top 3 that come to mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's like just recently at one of the shows I did, there was this one guy that I don't know if it was like almost like a random fact Tourette's. He would run over to my table and just shout stuff at me and like leave. Like first he comes over, he goes, Cowardly Dogs about family that lives in the middle of nowhere, and they like ran away, and I was like, okay. They came back and then he said, Adam Sandler starred in the movie Click, and I'm like, yeah, he sure did. And they came back another time, and by the third time I knew he wasn't going to say anything that made any sense, so I just went, I don't even know what he said. I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Ask him for his number just in case you were ever on a random game show and needed like all the facts.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a bunch. Honestly, I can't. Most of them are great people, but you do, run into some wacky ones sometimes,
That's life, definitely.
Right. But yeah, you find
at the cons. Like I just started within the last couple of years going, but and I haven't gone to the Comic-Con yet. Like
okay.
I still am working my way up to that one because
you talk about New York or
cosplay. Yeah, and I would do want to do cosplay and go all out. So
yeah, New York. I'm not doing New York this year because I have it's weird because I'm close to New York and it should be an easy show to do, but I won't always have luck getting in there. I don't think I've ever got in there on my own name. I usually get somebody invites me and I share a table with them, or like, when Marty was there, we both got invited. We shared a table. But like this year, like I'm not even going to wait to be rejected. Like I applied and I haven't heard anything back, and I don't know if I will. But I got invited to 2 shows in Dallas around that same time, and one was a Fan Expo one, which I always do great with those. They're always good. And also I'm doing another show. So I'm going to be in Dallas for 2 weeks. There's another show the week before it that has a cast of Harry Potter and the cast of Lord of the Rings. So I'm like, well, that's probably
cool.
Right. Yeah. That's going to be a fun one. I figure, a lot of people are going to be at that. So, I'm like, I don't really need New York. I'd like to go if I could, but it's just such a hassle, So I'm like, not going to do it.
So I have to ask for all of the aspiring artists and people that just want to know, like, what tools or like software do you use? Because I mean, like, even like I said, I have the Nightmare, like Courage with Nightmare, hanging in the other room, and it's so cool. I mean, like, it's legit. Like, it looks like it's out of like a digital comic.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about, because I do a lot of the stuff I do is like if you're talking about me drawing on the Funko Pops, I'd use something different than I would use when I was, drawing the sketches or that.
Yeah, I guess I went pretty big. Okay, we'll start first with, as far as your sketchbook. Like,
yeah, I guess I just use like regular pencils, and then I have like inking pens that I use. And like with the Funko Pops, I do those with Posca pens. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
I just got a set of them. Everybody was like Copic markers for life, but they're so expensive. I was like, I am never going to be able to financially recover from this. So I got the Poscas, and I was like loving it. I was like, this is quality.
They are great. I used to do, when I first started doing the Funko Pops, the art on the Funko Pops, I was using like acrylic paints and
Mhm.
markers and stuff like that. And honestly, when I look back on those, they look terrible. I was doing I was doing them for a store, so I wasn't doing them like I do them now. And then when I finally realized how I could do it, I'm like, well, I don't have to pay the store percentage for these. I can just do them on my own. And also, I learned how to do it better. Like the ones that I sold for the store, I almost feel like they should give everyone their money back because I got a lot better at it. I saw one on eBay recently. I'm like, oh, that's one of my old ones. Like, oh, I don't like seeing those. They don't look that good to me. But the Posca pens, they work really good though.
They're really good quality, and they're not like super expensive. Like a lot of those other markers are like in another dimension of expensive. But I
Mm-hmm.
got like a 5 or 6, like maybe like 7-pack, and at Target, and so they're accessible.
Yeah. Yeah, I've probably got, I just bought a marker holder, so I've got, and that fits like 158 markers in it, and I filled that up, and then I probably got another, I could probably get 2 or 3 of those. I have so many, Posca pens, so.
Yeah, I've
But yeah, they're great.
accumulated a lot. I've been going through and I've been doing a lot of cleaning lately.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like between like cleaning my son's room and like the guest room where he has all his stuff and my room and like all like the office and everything, like I mean, I have a whole case full of crayons and
Yeah.
color pencils and Sharpies. Like, I was
Oh,
wondering where
yeah.
all my Sharpies went. Like, I have them in every color now.
I use those a lot for sketches at shows too. Actually, it's funny the way that. Let me see if I even have. I might have a couple ready. I mean, because I've been doing them all day, so it's basically what I've been doing. But I do things like this to bring to the show. And I got like this one. But like when I first started doing this, I was at a show with Marty. He's the voice of Courage, and we had both brought a bunch of Funko Pops with us, and we sold out of them. We really underestimated the crowd. We just had like nothing left, and he's like, what do we do now? Like, there's still people coming. He goes, go buy some comic book backing boards and just start drawing on them. And that's what I did, and that's why I do those now. And they like, I was drawing them so fast I couldn't keep them on the table because they kept disappearing. So now I usually go before a show and I get like a bunch ready just so like I have them prepared, so that when people come, like I have a good 20 or 30 there, and then if they want more I can keep drawing them while I'm there, but I don't have to like rush.
Muscle memory at this point, like
A little bit.
character.
Yeah, it is kind of like it's funny because when I first started drawing them again, it wasn't, I'd kind of forgotten a little bit, but now it's kind of like stuck back in there again. Courage and Bart, like I can pretty much bang those out pretty quick without even looking, because those are 2 people ask for a lot.
2 faves. So I have a question for you. When it comes to signature,
Mm-hmm.
do like because you sign a lot of things and
Yeah.
like people probably have to get that certified and like all that.
Mm-hmm.
Has your signature changed? Because my signature is constantly changing. Like I didn't even realize how much it's changed like over time.
Not really. I remember, it's gonna sound funny, but when I was in high school, I like practiced because like I had a lot of like, John Byrne, Walt Simonson, some of these people that I was really big fans of, and
You
I
do
saw the way
things
they
that are in a
would sign.
habit.
Yeah, and I saw their signature, like Walt Simonson. I don't know if you know him, but his signature looks like a dinosaur, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I was working on my signature back then. Like I'm like, I gotta have a cool signature because I'm going to be signing all the comic books I do. I assumed, and then and I got lucky, and I'm signing more of the Funko Pops than comic books, but so I worked on one then, and I kind of have used that pretty much ever since high school, the same signature that I use. And JSA, they know who I am, so they have it on record. So people, if they want to take my stuff to JSA, they know how they authenticate it and everything too. So
Can you share another like memorable project that you've worked on and what made it special?
Well, when people ask me my favorite show that I worked on, I like a lot of these shows. Courage was fun. A lot of these other
I
ones, but
wasn't even gonna put you on the spot because
no,
that
that's okay.
wasn't fair. Like,
but I always say Jumanji was my favorite show to work on
really?
because what happened is that was after I graduated college. I'd been out for a couple years, but a bunch of us, because I'm from New York, New Jersey, that area. So we all moved out to LA together, and it was kind of like having a 5th year of college. You know what I mean? Like, it was because all my college buddies moved out there, and we all were working at the same time. And it was the first TV show that I worked on. You know, I worked on other things like commercial work and short films and things like that, but that was the first kind of like full-time like television, you know. And I did, I think, 2 or 3 seasons of that, and that's when I did Ghostbusters and Dragon Tales. And so, you know, so I was at Sony for a while, and they built a new studio, and we'd all eat lunch together, sometimes have dinner together. So it was like a continuation of, but it was college that you could hang out with the friends that you liked. You didn't have the ones you didn't like. There was all your buddies, kind of, you know. So definitely Jumanji. That was a fun one.
Is there like friendly competition between like the studios, or like when you work with competing companies?
Well, there was a thing when I was working at Sony that one of the directors that everybody liked moved to Nickelodeon, and a bunch of people went with him. And so, yeah, I guess sometimes there is stuff like that. I guess that happens from time to time. Oh, just something I mentioned Nickelodeon. This is an interesting fact that people like to hear, that I bring up usually during interviews. When I was in college, a lot of my friends went on to work on some really, you know, big shows and stuff. I actually, well, I don't know if I should mention that. Okay, I worked with the president of Cartoon Network way back when he was just a kid working, you know, starting out in animation. He doesn't want me to mention what project it was because he's embarrassed by it, but we worked on a project together. But also, my roommate in college is actually now the voice of Plankton, and he's actually doing his own show now that he's producing. I think he's producing it and writing it, I think, which is kind of cool. You know, we both went on to have these like big iconic characters that we worked on, you know.
That's so cool. Also, that's like another iconic voice is Plankton.
Right. Well, it's funny. He used to do imitations of the teachers in class. He's a storyboard. I talked to Tom Kenny about it because I saw him recently, and you know, my friend told me he goes, "Oh, you got to go say hi to Tom." So I was like, "Okay." I went and talked to him. He was a storyboard artist, and he'd also had background as a stand-up comedian. We used to go watch him perform stand-up comedy, so he had that experience, you know, being in front of a crowd and stuff like that. And Tom Kenny told me what happened is that he would come in and they'd need like a temporary voice track. So they would ask, you know, Doug to do like a couple of voices. And he said, eventually they just said, you know what, he's so good, let's just use him, you know, and then that's how he ended up getting the job. So, you know, he did both.
Cool. Tom Kenny's just a legend in general.
Yeah.
Like the amount of roles
and
diversity between them. Like you have SpongeBob and him from Powerpuff Girls. I was people that's the same person, and they're like, "That's crazy." But like, the amount of voices, like
Tom I forgot when I talked to him, I forgot that he was the mayor on Powerpuff Girls. I was like, and it was later. I was like, oh yeah, he's the mayor too. I forgot that. You know,
it's like
whenever I'm watching like a cartoon, I like try not to look it up beforehand. And I try to figure out in my head, like, who the characters are.
Yeah.
And, like, even for, like, I just went to go see Inside Out, too. And I'm sitting there, like, trying to figure out, like, who the new characters are, like, who are the voices behind it. Like, I get it wrong a lot, but...
I do that, too, actually. Oh, that reminds me, too. This weekend, I just was at a show. It's funny, I wasn't even booked for a show this weekend, but somebody contacted me on Facebook, and they're like, oh, I wish you were at the show. I want to buy a SpongeBob pop from you. So I said, you know what? It's only an hour away. So I drove there and I brought some pops with me and I sold a few pops. But I got to talk to Billy West, which was kind of cool because he worked on Ghostbusters as Slimer and I worked on Ghostbusters too. So, you know, I got to talk to him a little bit and I'd also worked on some M&M's projects and he did the voice of that. And I never actually got the job, but I got pretty close to getting the job on Futurama at one point, like before it had started. So we had a little bit of stuff in common to talk about. And we talked about Tom Kenny and, you know, my friend Doug and things like that. Cause you know, you have people in common sometimes with some of these people that you may have never met, you know? So it's
so now
pretty cool talking to them.
Like next time, like you do the head nod and you can go,
right.
Hey, I'm not here.
Yep.
So are there any particular themes that you like to illustrate?
I mean, I guess with what I'm doing now, I really like science fiction because it's very like sci-fi. It actually started. Could I show my comic real quick?
I would love that.
Yeah, this is the cover. Well, this is actually the back cover, but this probably shows better on there. But yeah, that one I like sci-fi, and at the time when I started doing it, I was doing a lot of photo retouching. So like fixing blemishes and models like Victoria's Secret and that kind of thing. And it was okay, but I got bored with it, so I started making them into robots. And then I came up with that. I came up with this design on one where I was just kind of messing around, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'd make prints of that, and I'd bring it to shows, and people would say like, oh man, do you have a comic book of that? Like this one, Line Webtoon came to me and they said, oh, we'd love to see a comic of that. Do you have one? I didn't realize at the time you don't actually get paid for doing that stuff. So I thought there was going to be like some pay involved. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, oh yeah, they want to make a comic. I better, So I just said, yeah, I got a lot of stories for that. And then I went home and thought, okay, now I got to come up with a story for it. But I got it onto Big Bang Theory, and I got it into Heavy Metal magazine. So it started getting a lot of publicity because of those two things. So then I started making the comic book. I'm about halfway through issue 10 right now. So that's did I answer your question? I might have gone off on a tangent. I don't remember what the question was now, but
themes that you no, you're fine.
yeah. So I like doing science fiction. That's what that was about. Yeah, because that's the one I'm working on now, and that's a lot of sci-fi, and so I like that kind of thing.
Now, as far I know, it's a big thing in like the artist industry to know what is your color choice.
I don't know. I mean, since this is kind of a dystopian future kind of thing, I usually do a little bit darker. Yeah, just a little bit darker, and it's got like I don't see a lot of green and gray characters. I mean, there's like Green Arrow, I guess, but like she's kind of. And I actually originally there was like a supporting character that had kind of the same design, and then I changed hers to like blue and gray. I just realized as I say that out loud, that's Batman's color. But it's like it doesn't look the same, obviously, this character. But yeah, just nothing really specific.
Have any of your characters started as in your head as one thing and completely the finished product was a completely different thing, but it worked?
Yeah, actually, the one I was just mentioning, I don't know if I have a picture of her here, but the supporting character that I just mentioned in my book was, let me see, I can probably find it pretty quick. She was this one here, actually. This is, I don't know if you can see her. This one, whoops, yeah, right here. Or whoops, on the other side. I'm looking backwards. But she was actually I tried putting the costume on a different model just to kind of see, like, kind of play around with it a little bit and see how it looked. And I'm like, that looks cool. I can make that into a whole other character. Like I just started out messing around. And also there was another one too that was one of I mentioned that I used to take the models and make them into robots. This was actually one of those characters right here too, the blue one. I don't know if you can see her. And so she ended up becoming like a major character in the book too. So there were a couple things like that actually. When I have put that down right here.
Now, are they based off of actual people?
No. Just there's like stock bodies that I use, and like there's like a tall body and there's medium sized body, and I just kind of was messing around a little bit with it. And I mean, there might be some where I took one of the models that I worked on, and because originally they were all just photo retouching, and then later I made full 3D models out of them. So yeah, I guess initially they were based on somebody, but nobody I think that you would know or anything like that. Not like Elle Macpherson or anybody like that.
Yeah, I keep telling Vic about my friend Fallon. She does the whole Fallout cosplay.
Okay.
And she has a really cool take on it. And he keeps doing like the Fallout art. And I'm like, man, you gotta check her out because she would make like a really cool like muse for a piece of art.
I would love to. Like I had a model in mind. She was going to be cosplaying as my character at the shows and stuff, but then I'm not sure what happened, but she backed out at the last minute. She's like, "Oh, I'm too busy at work," and it was kind of weird because she really looked like my character, and I thought, "Oh man, this would be cool to have somebody like handing out my books at the shows, or flyers and stuff like that." But yeah, it just didn't happen.
Oh, have you ever have a character in mind like I mean, we know a lot of people from doing the
Right.
show and just being around town that, I mean, we could throw some names your way.
Okay. Yeah, maybe one day.
So, how would
It's
you say that social media affects and like how does that like do you sell a lot online? Do you sell more at the like conventions?
probably more at the conventions, but I do sell a lot through my Instagram page. Um, mostly my comic sells online. It's on Amazon. It's on
Are there like exclusives on one or the other?
sometimes, yeah, yeah. And then there's yeah. If you go to the website, honestly, I forget all the places it's available. But if you like for my comic, the Girl L.E.E.T.A comic, like if you go to cybergirlelita.com, it's like Cybergirl and then two L's. There's like links to all the places that it's available and stuff like that too. It's a little plug I'm throwing in there.
That's great. So have you ever, because you do a lot where people are like throwing ideas at you, have
Hmm.
you ever created one that the person's just like, not really what I was thinking when writing it? Or
Hmm.
like, have you ever
No.
had that person that just wasn't totally feeling it? And how do you deal with criticism or,
Hmm. I mean, I guess a little bit, but usually in that situation, I mean, you kind of have to have a little bit of a thick skin, especially when you're working on, oh, for example, The Simpsons were very like picky about because by the time I did Simpsons, it was like 2000, was it 2006 or 2008 around that time. So they were already an institution at that point.
Mhm.
So if you didn't draw them exactly right, they would notice, especially like the main family. They're like the hardest ones to draw because people know what they look like. And if it's off slightly, they'll let and I only did like the one comic book, but they were very picky about it though. Like they were like, this eye is slightly too big or slightly too small. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's
feel
kind
like
of
I would
crazy.
have a problem with that because like when
Yeah.
I like see something, I get really passionate about it and I'll like go all in. And if someone was like, yeah, no, I'd be like sitting there like just like grilling them.
It's part of the deal. You know what I mean? It's even when I was doing like because I used like I said I did retouching and then I also did 3D renders for Grand Marnier and some of these companies too. And the bigger the company, the more complaints they'd have, like small little minute things where you're like really you think someone. Oh, and the Expendables, I worked on the movie Expendables. I did special effects on that. I don't know if you know that Sylvester Stallone, everybody
Yeah,
was in that. And that one they were like, well, there's one little pixel left from the green screen, and I'm like, who's gonna see one pixel? You know what I mean? I know it's on a big movie screen, but one pixel, really? You know what I mean? It was like
same.
What was that
crazy.
like?
That was not, there's a reason I didn't do a lot of special effects movies. That was a horrible experience. That wasn't good. It was, I mean,
A lot
but
of work. There's a couple guys on YouTube that show behind the scenes of special effects, and
mhm.
it looks grueling. Like the amount of work it like goes into it. Like
Well,
people think
yeah.
that everything's just computerized, so the computer does stuff for you.
Hmm.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all just like entirely the computer does the work for
And I'm
you. It's
sure it's hard working on someone else's schedule. Like you
Yeah.
only have a certain amount of time to like basically read their mind.
Right. And on that thing, the studio I worked with went out of business shortly after that because what happened, it didn't, special effects aren't as great as people because like they think, oh, but there's so much money in that, but yeah, but all the big stars are getting that money. We weren't getting that money, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
in the directors that I worked with, I didn't work directly with Stallone. We hear Stallone on speakerphone, which was kind of funny that like whenever he was on speakerphone, the entire studio would start doing impressions of him, even though the girls would be like, "Oh, hey, he's on the phone." And the director
It
would go
really
like,
does
"Shut up,
sound like
he can hear
exactly
you."
like that to me.
but
I'm
oh, but
sure he's very used to
I'm
that.
sure. Yeah, I just. Oh, but yeah, but the thing is, like the guy running the studio that we worked for was, I don't know if I want to say corrupt. Like they didn't really have a good handle on things, and they would intentionally let the schedule run long because we didn't make a lot of money, and they got more money the more that it ran over, and we get
Mhm.
overtime. Like sometimes we get overtime, so I liked that. But like that's the only time you really made money. And I think the guys running the studio did the same thing. So they would just keep stretching it out, and it's like, we're supposed to be meeting a schedule here, but they just kept stretching it out, thinking probably like, oh, they got deep pockets, and the people running the studio. This is what I've heard from people. I don't know for sure, and take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, the studio went under not long after I left, so you know.
Do you feel like you'll ever take like your comic and put it on the big screen?
I would love to. I mean, if there's somebody out there that was looking for that, I would love to do it. It's funny. I didn't realize when I first came up with my character. Do you know the character Battle Angel Alita?
Yeah, I do.
I didn't realize that my name of my character was so close to that. So a lot of my friends were calling me and they're like, "Oh man, they made your movie, they made your comic into a movie, but they changed it all around." Like people were saying that to me, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I saw it, and then I didn't watch the movie for the longest time because I was nervous because I'm like, "What if it's close to what I'm doing?" But when I finally did watch it, like months later on, like HBO, I'm like, "Okay, I'm safe." It's the name is similar, but that's about it, you know.
So, can you describe like a typical like day, like preparing for one of the Comic Cons or one of the shows? Because,
Yeah,
like you said, that you have to get the pops together. Like, do you at this point do you know like exactly like do you have a basically like a pack of what you take with you?
Yeah, I usually bring about 3 tubs with me, so that way when I come back from a show, like I'll know like, okay, if one tub is empty and how many were in that tub, I need to reorder those. And I've ordered ahead. Like I've probably got about another tub and a half in the basement now that I haven't drawn on. That like, so when I sell out and I come back from the next show, I have those to get started on while I order the new ones. So it's yeah, a little bit of a system, and then like with the sketches, like I finished the pops yesterday for the show coming up this weekend. Now I'm doing the sketches, and now I want to get a jump on the office pops, you know. So
So, how do you feel that your style has, I mean, like, and I'm leaving this kind of vague, but how do you feel that your style has evolved from when you started to now?
well, I mean, I think like a lot of people, like I'm doing more on the computer than I did when I started. Not even with like my computer generated comic, but even when I do like the hand drawn stuff, it's still like I use sometimes the backgrounds I do in computer because they're a lot faster. But again, excuse me, people think that like, oh, you just press a button and this is background, but no, you still have to build those backgrounds. You have to get the right angle, and there's when you're doing them that way, you have a way that makes them look hand drawn. Like I did this one comic a couple of years ago, and they had like all these like jet fighters, and they were all flying around and stuff. And I would build one in 3D, and then I would like angle it how I wanted it, and it would make it look like a line drawing and stuff. So I would say probably more computer work, especially with backgrounds. That was my first job, was doing backgrounds, and now and I was okay at it. I did pretty good, but I like the computer makes it a lot faster than I could ever do it when I used to do them by hand for sure.
And since you've been in the business a long time, like 2 decades, correct?
Yeah, roughly. Wow. Maybe more even. I don't know.
A lot of people have a hard time putting a value on their worth.
Mm.
How do you decide, like how do you decide on pricing?
Well, nowadays it's funny because like when I'm at the shows and people are like, "Oh, you're so humble," how come, and stuff. It's like because I struggled a lot after Courage was probably the last show I worked on, because I went from Courage to working at Fisher Price, the toy company, and then
Oh
I got more. I was there for about 10 years, and it was more structured, less creative, and then like each job after that got less and less creative to a point where I was working jobs I hated. Like I mentioned, the photo retouching, and then the 3D modeling. Like I went from after Fisher Price, did special effects for a little bit. Then I went into more commercial with the 3D modeling. Then I went into the retouching. But each progressive job, like when I had retouching job, they wanted me to clean bathrooms too, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've been working for a long time, and I got to clean bathroom. Like each job got progressively worse to a point where, like, I had a friend of mine. I mentioned John Byrne. Keith Williams is a friend of mine who actually he's done a lot of work with John Byrne and stuff, and it just happened a chance meeting. I met him in a restaurant. I was there with my family, and he was like, "Oh man, you should like do these comic book conventions." He goes, "I'm doing these, and they're great. You don't have to. You're kind of your own boss. You don't have to depend on anybody to give you work, and you get to meet with the fans and stuff like that. And you're kind of the master of your own destiny a little bit, And when that happened, I was like, all right, let me give that a shot. Let me quit this job that I hate and like try doing this. And when I first did it, I did it kind of half and half. I did my day job kind of part time and did the shows. And when the shows started like rapidly outweighing what I was getting at my day job, I was like, okay, I think I can do this, and nothing else. And, and between that and my comic book, it's actually worked out pretty well. So yeah, my price now, I kind of go by what I'm a little bit lower, like on the stuff I sell at shows. Oh, also when I saw my stuff going on eBay for so much more, I raised my prices a little bit too.
I'll put some worth on that.
But I can't sell them for what they're selling on eBay because I don't. I mean, maybe people would buy them. I don't know. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but I see my pops going for like $300. I'm like, I can't ask somebody for $300 for one of my pops.
I mean, I was saying earlier, I saw them on Marketplace. They're up
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So, are there any projects that you would love to do in the future as far as, I mean, and again, leaving it very vague, I mean, also any collabs that you would like to do or work with anyone in particular?
Well, you mentioned like my comic becoming a show, which would be great. I would love to have something like that happen one day, like as an, I don't know, Netflix series, or people have often said too, it looks like it lends itself to like video games too, which would be great. I would love to do something like that with my character. I know. And I don't know, that brings up a good point. Have you seen, I probably get people sending this to me about 3 or 4 times a week, but the footage of the Courage video game, the fan made one, have you seen that?
I think so.
No.
It's so cool. I get that link sent to me a lot, but it's like a first person game, and he's walking through like a house, and he's got like a flashlight, and you're playing as Courage, and you see him, and I forgot what character was. I think it was like Freaky Fred jumped out at him or something, like, and then he chases him around. I don't know what the game is beyond that, but I would just love to even just play that game. But yeah, like as far as like, I would love to have some of my characters made into games, that kind of thing. I always used to want to do like Marvel and DC stuff, but I don't know. It's kind of changed since I was a kid, and I did some stuff for Marvel as a subcontractor, and DC Comics I worked on staff, and I did some work for them for a little while, and it's very different now though. I don't know if I really have that desire to do that, or more just kind of do my own thing at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you keep up with any new cartoons on Cartoon Networks or any of the other programming?
I'm trying to think if there. Well, I like what's that one? Invincible is really good. I got a couple of friends that work on that. Bob's Burgers, I like Bob's Burgers a lot too.
Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. And what's the other one? Great North, I think it's called. I like that one too.
Some of my favorite out right now. I really liked the Adventure Time stuff. I like all the fallout from that too. Like I like the other HBO picked up like the Adventure Time, Distant Lands, and those were really good and really well animated.
My daughter was a fan of those.
I love Adventure Time. I feel like that right now, I guess the trend is like stuff that kids can watch, but there's like another level to it. There's another depth that a lot of adults enjoy, and I feel like Courage was definitely like the first wave of that, because like kids get to enjoy like the mystery of it, and and then The Simpsons too, because it's like as a kid I loved it. I didn't understand half the jokes, but my mom was watching it with me. So. Yeah, I look forward to watching The Simpsons every week. People are like, oh, it's not as good as it used to be, but I still like it. Like maybe there's like half of them are like hilarious, but and maybe half of them aren't good, but there's still enough that are really good that keeps me going for sure.
The Simpsons are iconic.
Yeah.
So many of like the Simpsons jokes, and I feel like you can always find a friend you can always find a friend in a crowded room just quoting things like the Simpsons.
Right.
Like I'm always like steamed hams and people
Yeah.
in Aurora Borealis and this
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like there's always like you can always find a friend.
And I do I have a print of the Stupid Sexy Flanders that I bring to the shows. You know?
Yeah.
I do.
There's
Let me
a
see if I got.
guy. There's a guy with toys up where
Like
small,
it's one of my
media,
sketches.
large
Great.
is, and they have so many Simpson toys. Like, I mean, everything you could ever think of.
Oh yeah.
I've got my eye on. There's a Gizmo in the pink car from Gremlins.
Mm.
That
Oh, that's
every
cool.
time I go in there, like Jackson this week, he's like, "I don't see it. I don't see it." I was like, "I do." It's like all the way back. Like,
Yeah,
but
I'm a
you'll get to see
bit of a
that.
collector.
I believe you're. I believe you're at Vic's on the 24th. I think you said
Okay.
August 24th.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's on my schedule. I just right now my schedule's over on my computer. I'm
Yeah,
a
and
big
I will make sure to post that on all my social media, and definitely, like, I know that numerous people have asked that came to the last one. That
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Oh, thank you for inviting me on this. Oh, and definitely, hopefully, if I get a few more Instagram followers, I'm trying to get to 2,000. I'm not quite there yet. I'm at like 19.
Oh,
So
we can help you out with that.
awesome. Thank you.
Oh, definitely.
But you mentioned the toys. I don't know if I want to embarrass myself. I have a lot of toys in here. Like if I like were to pan around. Do you want to see real quick or no?
Yeah, definitely.
Or am I going to embarrass myself? I don't know. But these are like the
No,
ones I
because
had as a.
I just clean like
Oh shoot! I dropped it. Sorry.
Jackson like basically said to me, he's like, "You have a lot of like horror toys, and they're like
Yeah.
in my gaming room." And I thought about it, and I'm like, oh wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I got a lot. Well, I do a lot of these shows, so I get, I tend to find stuff that like I wouldn't find it elsewhere. And I've also got a few, um, like I'm not really a big autograph collector, but because some of the shows put me with the celebrities, like I end up like talking to them, and some of them turn out to be Courage fans. I get some of their phone numbers and stuff like that, and they give me some autographs too, which is kind of cool. So I'm starting to get a little bit of autograph wall going too.
No, you're definitely giving me ideas because like that's very organized. That's organized hoarding.
Yeah, right. Well, it's great because like when I'm working, it just kind of it's like a fun atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like I've never worked in an office that was as cool as this. So, well, I mean, when I was at Sony, oh, it's kind of a funny story. When I was
Is
working
there
at
a Courage
Sony,
Lego?
what's that now?
Is there a
Oh,
Courage Lego?
not to my knowledge. Oh, is there something you think you see back there? Or?
No, I was just wondering.
Oh, not that I've seen. I don't know about. I do have a corner with like fan stuff that Courage fan stuff that people have given me too. I've got like a lot of that stuff too. What was I getting ready to say? I was getting ready to say something. I forgot what it was, but that's like I guess sidetracked. That's okay. but no, I think I already covered that. It'll come back or it won't.
No, what's one of your favorite like toys in
Oh,
your
I'm
collection?
definitely a big Mego fan. I don't know if you know what Mego figures are,
Yeah.
but they were the ones I had as a kid. So, and they've just reissued a bunch of them. And for a while, when I was working at Fisher Price, I was doing custom figures that I would sell to people. Like it was like a business where I was actually doing pretty well. Like I was covering my rent with that basically, and it was kind of sad because I would work really hard on this figure. I would sculpt the heads, and I would have like features like light up eyes and all this cool stuff that I figured out how to do. And then I have to sell it, and I was like, so so I reached a point where I was like, I just started doing them for myself, and I just like to keep them.
I was gonna say the Street Sharks just got re-released recently.
Oh, okay.
And I was super excited about that. They were kind of expensive, so I didn't end up getting them. But the original Street Sharks themselves, the one I had as a kid, sell for so much money. It's insane.
That reminds me, I don't know are you familiar with SWAT Cats?
Yeah, I am.
I worked on the toy line for that, and I had the prototypes. I kept the prototypes, and when I had them for years, and then I sold them on eBay. I probably sold them for like $100, but I had like the whole line. I didn't really know that much about it. I just worked on the toy, I knew a little bit from working on it and stuff. And then I see now like those toys, just the toys, not the prototypes, are going for like, I don't know, 300 or 400, or they were like a really high. And I was like, I had the prototypes. I wonder how much I could have got for those now if only I'd known.
But so thank you so much for taking the time and coming on
Oh, no
and letting
problem.
us pick your brain about everything. Like, I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see you in August.
Yeah.
And I will definitely post it up everywhere because
Cool.
I know a ton of people want to go to that. Jesse?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, and for anybody that doesn't know, Vic, the guy that owns the gallery, he does all of the art that's in the background on the show each week.
Cool.
So his stuff will be there. They've got a couple of cool, like really like unique resin sculptors. Like, I mean, I see it all the time, but theirs is like a different. Like they have they make bugs and they look like realistic. They almost have like
Is he the guy that was doing the 3D printing?
Yeah, he's not the same. This isn't the same people.
Okay.
These people are really like good at what they're doing.
Okay.
I mean, they have frogs that literally look realistic. Like,
that's cool.
Go into Vic's gallery and people are just like buying up these frogs.
Because there was a guy that I talked to about doing a 3D statue of my character, and I just forgot about it until you mentioned it now. I wonder if he ever got around to that or not. Probably not. I mean, they're busy, and I get it.
What, Dan? I don't know, but you might be able to talk to the people that are doing resin there now.
Okay.
I mean, phenomenal.
Oh, cool.
Definitely. But thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you in August.
Awesome. And thank you for plugging my Instagram and my site if you want to do that too. That the cybergirl.com. That's pretty much it.
And we will tag you in everything. I will send you the episode when it airs. It'll air on Wednesday, so we will get it all to you. And
awesome. Thank you.
So much. I mean, seriously.
No
is
problem.
there anywhere that you wanted to say that you're going to be at coming up?
I mean, I post my schedule on my Instagram because without it in front of me, I honestly, I lose track. I was at one show and I was in Connecticut and I was telling the people, they say like, oh, where are you going to be? I said, well, I'm going to be in Connecticut soon. And they're like, you're in Connecticut right now, right? I was like, oh yeah. Honestly, I lose track sometimes.
Well, I will try when we air the show. I will try to post at least like one or two of the places that you'll be at.
Yeah, I know the next one this weekend is Boston, but so I guess that would be in Natick. It's a super mega show, I think, and then the one after that I think is it's called the Reunion Office Con in Florida. So that's another one that's coming up. Those are the two that are coming up. I'm not sure after that, but there's pretty much 2 or 3 a month. So.
And Instagram's the easiest way for people that want to collab or get something like.
Yeah. My Facebook, you're only allowed like 5,000 friends, and I'm like, I've already tapped out. I do have a Art of Jeff Brennan page that they could use that on Facebook, but mostly I do it through Instagram because I think it's unlimited, so I can go a little higher on that one.
Sounds good, and we will definitely plug your Instagram, and let's get them over 2,000.
Cool, thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay. Super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I know a handful of the things that he's done, but I mean, with everything you talk about, there was like how many more, but so exciting. And definitely, if you want to go with us, I mean, it's a lot of fun. it's amazing to see all the different ages
Yeah.
of people that just get excited when they see his work or like see that he's there.
Yeah, right.
But well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Another successful episode of a Pretty Little Podcast.